Resilience Reset. And we are going to be talking about social anxiety as the world is opening and we're getting out, back going to conferences, going to networking events. I had my first one today, so this is what brought up this topic. I just thought it was a really important conversation to have because I've been talking with a lot of people about how they've kind of just gotten comfortable to being at home. And I get that. So what do we do now that we've got to go back out? So I apologize that we're not streaming to LinkedIn today. And the reason is because when I went into my Restream account, it said the LinkedIn Live link had expired. And I haven't been able to figure out exactly why that is or reconnect it yet. So I will investigate that before tomorrow. Hopefully you'll find us over here on YouTube or on Facebook. So that's where we're at. And before we dive into this very important conversation, let's call out the elephant in the room, which is my Eugene Levy level eyebrows. They're so crooked too. That's the worst part. They're a little dark. I tried to up my makeup game to make it not work. But anyway, I went and I got them shaped and done first time since COVID, right? Anyway, they dye them because I have really blonde eyebrows. And anyway, so I realized I sort of a couple of people kind of went like this and looked at me because I didn't have any eye makeup on. So it was they were really, really dark. Anyway, so that's so fun. Thank you for laughing along. All right, we've got some chat over here. Hello. Awesome. Happy Monday, Greg. And so you're over on YouTube, and I know you sort of watch between the two different channels. And I know there's some people who only see me on LinkedIn, so I'm super disappointed that they're going to miss it because they always catch the replay, but we'll figure it out. And I think this is such an important topic, right? Have you felt this too? It's ooh, you know what? Maybe it was okay. Maybe it was okay being on our own, hanging out on lockdown, super lockdown here in Ontario. Where we're just only a few weeks, we're not even to our real opening yet. We're still in stage 3. And so, when we create habits, we kind of get into this, this real comfortable pace. And there's a lot of comfort that comes from hiding behind a computer screen, right? Or, we're not hiding behind a computer screen. And often, in fact, what we are is looking into a computer screen and the camera is illuminating us towards other people. But, sorry, my dog's on the ground. I don't know what he's looking for. Making noises. But it's just such a difference of having to figure out. So going out, we got to figure out the jokes, right? Oh, you mean I have to put on pants or get out of yoga pants as mine? And what, I can't wear my fuzzy socks anymore? You want me to wear what? Heels? Let's not be dramatic. I don't think so. Always a wedge girl moving on out here, right? And I would be shocked. I think COVID, if you were in the shoe business, it probably wasn't a great thing. Same with if you were in fancy pants. Or dresses, that was your place, probably not great. So anyway, what do we do with this world? And we're going out. And social anxiety is something really, really that is quite serious, right? For some people, it's debilitating. It will stop them from doing the things that they need to do to move forward their career, to network, to grow, to, just show up in the places where they really want to and need to be. And I know this may seem really difficult to believe, but I am someone who had a lot of social anxiety. And when I was younger, before I learned how to network and before I gained confidence, I was so afraid to go to events. I would get ready for hours. I would not show up at the last minute because I'd be too nervous. I would, just be sweating and I don't want to get too many details, but it was really something that was very difficult for me to overcome. And what I find very interesting as we're going through this reopening is a lot of those old insecurities come back, that float back to the surface because if we've overcome something, if we've gotten into new habits and we've created new routines pre-COVID, where we could just go to an event and we'd feel confident and we'd be in our, like, we'd stretched our comfort zone. But I think our comfort zones are like an elastic band, right? So when we really have to push it and we, like, strive and strive and strive and work and work and work and work and work until we try to get, to that comfort zone, that expanded comfort zone, then we stop doing the work that got us there. We stop having the habit. We stop having the reinforcement of that behavior, i.e. COVID, send us back home, and it snaps to where we started. It never goes back to where you started. You can't go back, but it does have that sensation of you may have to climb your way back out of it. And so if you're feeling that and you're kind of like, oh, gee, I thought I overcame all this a long time ago. Think of it that way. At least that's what I'm thinking of it. And when you've already stretched your comfort zone and got a comfort level, but then you've lost a bit of your juju and your magic and your confidence in an area, the beauty is because you've done it before, the path to re-expanding your comfort zone and beyond is a lot easier. It's so simple in comparison to what it was the very, very first time when you had to overcome your social anxiety. So social anxiety, what I mean by it is a feeling of insecurity, a feeling of maybe nerves. I mean, that's an obvious answer. Your heart may race, your palms may sweat. Like there could be some physical pieces of the puzzle to it, or you may feel a sense of, I'm just not going to bother going. Like it may feel too complicated to figure out what to wear, to figure out what to say, to have small talk. Small talk might be really uncomfortable because you haven't had to do that with people, for quite some time. All of that is possible. And whatever you're feeling, or maybe you're feeling nothing, but you know somebody who is, and then you're going to watch this and have some ideas to share with them. But whatever you're feeling is totally okay and totally natural and is just your journey. And so by making the concerted effort to figure out, okay, am I feeling comfortable going back out into events? And am I feeling confident? Comfortable and confident. Those are the two things we want to do, because when we show up as comfortable and confident, then you can be charismatic and present and make amazing connections. Let's find some more C words here today, Allie. Okay, let's go to the list. First thing, start small. So maybe you don't need to go to the big conference, in Las Vegas with 700 people or 7,000 people. I don't know what the restrictions are over there right now. Maybe you just go for dinner with 2 people on a patio. And next week you say, okay, I'm going to go to dinner with 4 people and I'll move inside. And then I'm going to go to a small event with the local chamber, or I'm going to host an event, right, that I can invite 10 people to, and just create some small steps that may make you feel more like, okay, getting back into the groove. So it doesn't have to be gangbusters, all in right away, because that may be really anxiety producing. So small steps, big reward. The next thing is, if you are going to a big event, and by the way, don't forget, I taught networking for years. That was my bailiwick. That's what companies hired me to teach. I would go in, I would teach professional, profitable networking. And so a lot of these strategies I'd share because people were more introverted or they lack confidence, which was my scenario. And so I needed to find ways to feel more comfortable. And that's what happened. But here was a trick I learned. So often we think, okay, well, I don't really want to go to this event. I'm having social anxiety about it. I just, you know what? I'm going to go late and I'm going to blend in with the crowd. And what I came to realize is it's actually more comfortable when you go early, because it's a lot easier to walk into a room that has 5 people waiting for the guests to arrive than it is to walk into a room that is already full of people who are lost in conversation. And so if social anxiety, networking, being in rooms with people who you don't know is challenge for you, then I'm going to encourage you to go right at the very beginning of the event. Don't go fashionably late. Don't show up 10 minutes late. Just go right at the beginning, because the other benefit of that is it's generally the leadership, the people who are putting on the event, who are sitting there at the very beginning waiting for the guests to arrive. And so you become the first person to arrive, which makes you awesome, because anybody who's ever run an event knows, or maybe this is just my insecurities over the years. But you have a party. The big thing is you want people to show up. So when somebody shows up, we like them. So thank you. So I'd say go late. But then the next benefit of that, not only does it make you more comfortable, it makes the host really happy. But then the host, when they're talking with you, is going to introduce you to the next person who arrives and hope that you create a conversation with that person. So it actually is a really great networking strategy if you're nervous, or even if you're not, and you just want to find a way to connect with the leadership in the room. Which brings me to the next way to help overcome social anxiety, is to be a part of the leadership or volunteer for the event, or just find a way to have a role. And I discovered this because what I was very fascinated about with myself when I was younger was, as a bartender or a receptionist, I could interact with anyone, right? Like if there was a party going on and, people were coming in, and I'd be like, have their bottle of blue sitting on the bar top, ready, waiting for them to sit down in their favorite seat, right? Like cheers, Norm, like, here you go. And I could chat, and it was charismatic and talking with people, and it really just always felt really comfortable with it, right? But then I'd go to another event, like a barbecue, where I didn't have a purpose, and I'd be quiet and not really in my juju, or like I wouldn't have the same flair until I got a few drinks maybe into me, like a couple of beers, and then I'd be all right. But that wasn't a way to socialize, right? So I noticed the difference was when you have a leadership role, when you have a reason to interact, it makes it easier, because you kind of feel like there's a reason I need to be there. Now, please do not confuse this. You are enough on your own. If you show up in a room and you are there and you smile and you say hi to somebody, that's awesome. That's good enough. That is your right. That's your awesomeness. Do it. But if you're really feeling like you're not good at that mingling piece of talking with strangers, find a way, call the organizer, say, hey, do you need any volunteers? Do you need people to greet? Do you need somebody to take tickets? Like, have a role that just helps you have an excuse to talk to people. And that can really, at least I found that really helpful when I was feeling uncomfortable. Next, take your eyes off of yourself. We're self-conscious because we're worried about, am I going to say something dumb? Am I, going to look, do I look okay? Is there something in my teeth? Are my eyebrows looking like Eugene Levy's? They really are quite intense, aren't they? But no, I'm making fun of that. I'm not worried about it. I know tomorrow they'll be calmed down. Life will be fine again. But the self-consciousness comes because we're facing inward. We're worried about us, like ourselves, like what's wrong with me. And the thing is, we want to go in and take our eyes off of ourselves and look and say, okay, who can I serve? How can I help? Who can I connect with today genuinely? Now, not to be confused with the whole concept of, make a conversation all about them. We'll talk about that in another program, but I just think it's the worst advice, right? Because people feel interrogated, it doesn't feel authentic, and you can't actually make a great connection if it's all about them, because you're half of the equation, and you maybe don't care that much about them yet to ask them all about them and have an entire conversation built around it. Like, there's definitely a balance between the two So it's not about you. It's not about me. It's about finding the we. Now, please do forgive the cheese factor in that. But I tell you, it makes for great conversations. It's the balance, not all about them. And every time I hear people say that as advice, because I hear it a lot, I'm like, don't, you know. But hey, I only went to thousands of networking events and met thousands of people, and I form my own opinion. So if it works for you, that's great. But I just find those conversations where it's like interrogating. And you know what? Let's not even talk about it today. Let's talk about that in another thing. So I think that really helps because we're self-conscious when we're focused on ourselves and are like, I'm talking about an internal dialogue. What else I find interesting though, too, is that if I'm feeling self-conscious, I tend to try harder. And usually with like other quote unquote influencers, I'm coming over this a little bit, but there are certain people who still, even though I know them, even though we've talked, they just kind of have this air about them that makes me feel like they don't even know I'm good. They don't know I bring value, and like I shrink into this like submissive, like, I don't know, pick me. I'm cool, honestly. But then I get like really self-conscious. And so now I'm like, okay, you got to notice that and pull yourself out of it, right? Like pull out of it. So self-awareness is key. All right. Another thing, if you're feeling a lot of social anxiety, is to really lean into it. And I've talked about this before in other videos where we can't so many people say we just ignore it or push it down or let it go or don't get bothered by that or focus on external. And I'm like, you know what? Let's feel the feels. Let's really own the shit. Like, what's going on? And so I'm going to ask you, if you're about to go to an event and you're feeling sort of anxious about it, to consider writing out and exploring the worst case scenarios. What could possibly go wrong? Now, I've had times in my life where more than I ever imagined could go wrong, like falling down the stairs in front of 400 people. That was really classy, but I saved it and actually ended up, because of hopping off the end and like a foot that was like totally bleeding, the whole ankle was like skinned. Anyway, and then I like hopped on. I'm like, oh, hi, I'm Allison Graham. It was great, but it worked. And actually that was the launch of my political career. But I didn't even think of that. I was just nervous. Now, because I was probably so nervous, I fell downstairs with those really cute strappy sandals. Oh, they were great. High heels and all. But if we look at those and we say, okay, what's the likelihood of them happening? And if they happen, what happens? Like, how bad really is that? Generally, not the end of the world. So also with this social anxiety, there are probably, and this is part of your self-awareness and your situational awareness, is understanding how that manifests itself in your body. So I mentioned earlier, it could be sweating, it could be heart racing, it could be shortness of breath, it could be your leg is like you're really fidgety. There are many different ways. So figure out what your way is, and then let's put something in place to interrupt it. So for example, I used to have a friend, or I still have the friend's awesome, who used to have really sweaty palms when she got nervous. And it was like hyperhidrosis. She'd get really crazy. So she's like, what do we do? So we just ended up, she put a cloth in her pockets. She always wore pockets, and she had a couple of them. Every pocket had one. And she would put her hand in her pocket and wipe off the sweat before she shook somebody's hand so nobody would notice. And then it would go on to sweating again, right? And eventually she stopped having the same issue and got some remedy for that. So I think that there are different things we can do, right? If it's you tend to breathe shallowly, you want to take those nice deep belly breaths and, really lean into that. If your heart is racing, just like feel your heart, maybe put your hand hand on your heart and have it like really like just like, okay, it's beating fast, and trying to get into a rhythm with it to slow it down. And what are some other things? Like, I don't know, just like whatever your thing is, figure it out. And then you can get really curious about how do you overcome it? Now, the last piece of this puzzle to deal with and overcome your social anxiety as it relates to going to events and, networking and in your professional situations is really to understand the perspective. We walk into a room and we think that everybody's going to look at us. In fact, I remember in grade 9, for the first semester, so first half of the year, so September to January, I refused to go into the cafeteria because when I was in grade 8 and going into grade 9, I heard through like people teasing me and whatever, that when you go into the cafeteria, everybody makes fun of the grade 9 people. And I took this to heart and I figured I couldn't handle it. So every day I went somewhere for lunch, to my grandma's house, to the home run restaurant across the street from the high school. Still there, by the way, still awesome burgers, awesome fries. But I had those for the beginning of grade 9. And I was so afraid that I'd walk into the room and all eyes would be on me. Like, I mean, it's just the perspective, right? But then like that's a fear that can be so ingrained in people who have social anxiety, right? Like, I don't want eyes on me. And then the first time I walked into the room, nobody even noticed. I mean, granted, it was by that point February, but like nobody cared. I was like, oh my God, I'm really nervous. Why am I nervous? And it still like was a thing. And I think as adults, we can still feel like we have to be on our best behavior, that, these people have got it all together and we're walking in and we make up this big story, when the truth is everybody's just kind of worried about themselves. And they're thinking about themselves and wondering, am I doing this right? And most people right now are out of practice. So if you're not as graceful as you once were, if you are not totally confident, you're probably not the only person in the room who's feeling a little bit like that. That would be my thinking. And yeah, those are my thoughts on dealing with social anxiety. Talk about a riff. There's a riff for the day. And again, I'm sorry about the YouTube not working. The YouTube's working fine. Sorry about the LinkedIn not working. But I hope we can get this video up to the people who tend to watch it. I love it because I hear people will say to me, I don't come to it live, but I eventually watch it sometime in the day. And that makes me feel very happy. So I'm going to keep going with our resilience reset. And this piece about how does this fit into resilience? So you think about it, first of all, resilience, a lot of it has to do with who we're surrounded with. And so if we're having social anxiety, we might not be making the right connections. So that's a big piece of the puzzle. It's also, how much of our lives can be stolen worrying and thinking about where we're actually going to go and like being afraid to go there, right? Like, it just talk about a way to take you away from your sweet spot of performance and productivity. Like, just suck it, gone, totally. So I hope that helps. Obviously, I'm not at home today. I'm back in the city. But I am heading home soon. And on that note, I hope you have an amazing day. I hope you have an amazing Monday. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, 3:15. I will figure out, I hope, how to get LinkedIn back up and running. And until then, may you stress less, do more, and be happier. Bye for now.